Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, and with me, of course, is Mr. Matt Germain. And we are here to help you love and learn with the Tampa Bay Rays. What's fun, what's not, and dissect what's happening inside the minds of that front office, not to mention the coaching staff. Hey, how you doing, Matt?
I'm getting drafty.
Oh, I dig it, brother. I absolutely dig it. It is that time of year, man. It was who's moving in, who's moving out, and then who's potentially going to be coming in from the draft. What are you seeing there?
I'm seeing a lot of trades probably being consummated right now before the draft, more than likely involving a few of those picks, I would imagine, because teams are starting to move. We saw the Rays make a couple of deals, and I think there's a lot more teams wanting to jump into the action, and things will get sorted out pretty quickly.
You know, it's a lot about it. It's a lot about money. Let's just be realistic about it. And one piece of news that we got this week was about our beloved, well, maybe beloved's not the right word, dear Wander Franco. He looks like he's going to be indicted. And if that's the case, the Rays could potentially cut $2 million a year from their budget.
Yeah, $2 million a year, and then some. Like what this could lead to is ultimately the Rays deciding to add money later on, like beyond 2026 and 2027, because they had a sizable chunk already allocated to Wander Franco. So it changes a lot of things. And the big one, I think, like you were probably going to point to, is the additions that they made and the Chargers made that are fairly significant. Like they can lead to 20 years in prison, but more than anything, assuming they are successful with those charges being laid, regardless of what the penalty ends up being in the Dominican Republic, it gives MLB the people who hand out work visas in the United States the leverage that they need in order to deal with it in a administrative manner that allows the Rays to get out from the contract and forget all about them, sort of thing. So it would take a lot of power away from Wander Franco, and now the Rays no longer need to pay him, which is huge.
Yeah, I'd love to have another $2 million to put somewhere. And this sad situation that all came down from this, and the people that were involved, and the young lady. But we're not going to rehash that here. People, if you want to know more, dig it up. It's out there. But the impact on the game with the Rays, I mean, this guy, he was going to be the face of the Rays, much like Longoria was for a long time, I thought. But it's that's obviously not going to be the case, and who knows where he may wind up, if not in prison. Who knows? But really didn't want to lace this name to it. But I was making a comparison to a franchise player, and that goes to Mr. Evan Longoria. I kind of bounced him there because I see he's going to be in town. He's going to be at the Trop on Tampa, throwing out a ceremonial first pitch. So that should be a lot of fun.
Like there was, I don't want to say, I think his feelings were hurt when he was dealt. He thought he was going to stay forever. Yeah. And I don't think he ever did anything outwardly, against the Rays at all. And rightfully so. But I do like the fact that he's, inching his way back in. I saw it with a lot of other teams where the players get surprise dealt, maybe you can call it that. And then they go back, and eventually it can lead to really productive things. Like there's no reason he can't join the front office in some way, shape, or form, sort of like what who's the guy that was an outfielder?
Denard Span.
Denard Span, like how he advises the front office, right? There's a lot of good that can come out of that relationship, and I think Evan still makes his home in Tampa, as far as I know. He might have another one in Arizona, but there's nothing that says that he can't join back in. And once they move into the new one, you can still build the Evan Longoria statue somewhere on that site.
And I do see that happening at one point. I know when Evan was dealt, and I don't know how early that was in Neander's career with the Rays, but the venom that was directed toward him, I expected some fans to burn Eric in effigy. It was
Yeah.
it was not pleasant with a lot of fans, and I had people say to me, I was working at the Trop during that time when as a fan host, and they said, "Well, I'm never going to see another game again. I'm never
Mm.
going to, it's." But it hurt, I mean, like it's a franchise guy. Yeah. I,
The 10-5 rights really scared the Rays, and especially like the amount of financial flexibility that they had, they weren't able to wait and keep weeding down his salary to match what his production was going to be and still be as competitive as they wanted to be because they need to allocate, like, for example, like an easy one to point to, and I did this while I was still at D Rays Bay. The Rays would never have gotten Charlie Morton
no.
if they had, Evan Longoria. So then what happens to that team? Well, is the pitching staff anywhere near good enough? Are they able to do the run that they actually went on? I don't think it would have been as good a run of 5 years in the playoffs as it has been.
Let's jump back to where you started. And like I said, I'm always jumping off the train.
Yeah.
We were looking at the drafts and the activity going on. We had earlier this year, we DFA'd Erasmo Ramirez and Harold. He was dealt, or actually DFA'd as well. So
Mm-hmm.
then this week, who was it? Phil Matana.
Phil Maton was dealt for cash, and also right before him, we had Aaron Civale dealt. Right, so the Rays have between those two have cleared about 6 million or just over 6 million in obligations, which is, you can look at it two ways. You can say, okay, well, they're not sure how far they're going to be able to take it, so they're trying to save money to kind of soften the blow, sort of thing. But I think it's more making room for better options, personally, and deciding to move on from guys that, Shane Boz is out pitching Aaron Civale 90% of the time that he's on the mound. And I would say the same thing with Manuel Rodriguez in the pen that they called up once they dealt uh, Phil Maton to the Mets. Now, Phil Maton basically was to me, he was like a hot potato. he was like, oh, he had a little good stretch. Okay, let's deal on what we can, sort of thing. And because he was doing a little bit better. Um, but in getting rid of his salary, they were able to open up room for a guy that they really like. I think he's had enough time now in AAA to make the best of it. And the intriguing thing is, Mark, with the pen altogether, now they've moved on, like you mentioned, Erasmo Ramirez, Chris Davinsky, and Phil Maton, three of their softest throwing guys in the pen. So now they've replaced those with pretty hard throwing guys. So it's going to be interesting to see how the pen performs now that the majority of them, I would say, are averaging 94 plus. In the pen, other than Richard Lovelady, I think is the only one that doesn't. But it'll be interesting to see if that helps them, or if they are so alike velocity wise that it helps the other team kind of maintain performances.
Well, you're talking about that, and I get it. I'm just wondering what else might break. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there's some people say, well, they want to get rid of Siri and Rosarina. I mean, they're doing great, but their money is just so much there, and surely they can bring up somebody from the farm. I don't see that. I don't see it with Siri anyway. I see it possibly with a Rosarina.
I don't know for so I think the next one to get moved would be another starting pitcher to make room for Jeffrey Springs. Jeffrey Springs threw about 64 pitches is in the last start, which usually means, you're able to go 70 plus the next time. So now he's landing to be a viable option that will give you 4 to 5 innings, right? On average.
Right.
Uh, Now you do want to get him at least 2 or 3 starts, but like I said, he's also on the clock. So when they put him on a rehab assignment and they sent him to AAA, they have a certain amount of time before they would either have to use an option or add him to the roster. So before the trade deadline, they're going to have to put him on the roster no matter what, whether it's in the pen or whether it's in a rotation. And I think that's going to force out one starter. When you look at the dollars and cents of it, the one that seems to make the most sense is Zach Eflin, who's been doing, solid work, but not, ace potential guy necessarily that he was last year for the majority of it.
Right.
So so the value may not be as high as it would have been last year, but he's still showing strength and being able to go deep enough in games that he'll be a very intriguing piece that some teams will want to add. The outfield is weird for the Rays because if you look at AAA and you look at guys like you mentioned that they could call up, and I think they're still a year away from being like completely comfortable with doing that. So if it was a Chandler Simpson, if it was Heriberto or Hernandez with a lot of really good success in AAA, somebody like that, like Ruben Cardenas, we talked about before, he was doing really well. They still weren't comfortable using him. They shipped him off to Philadelphia. So I think outfield wise, they're happy, even though they want Johnny DeLuca to do more than he's doing.
Yep.
That's the way I feel. And I feel like if they don't use Johnny DeLuca much, they'll just give more playing time to Richie Palacios and they'll work it out like that. So and maybe even eventually Jose Caballero spends more time in the outfield or some time in the outfield. We'll see, but it's a it's an intriguing time for the Rays who have some assets that you could point to that you know at the trade deadline we might get one surprise, but I still think the starting pitcher is the one.
That makes more sense, and you're talking about the starting pitcher and the buzz is back.
Mhm.
But his first time out, he didn't really get any backing from the offense whatsoever, it seemed like.
No.
So let's see, what was that? It was the Rangers, and we lost 3-0 to them that day.
Mhm.
He gave up, what? I'm trying to think, was it like six hits? I'm not sure. I'll take it. Yeah. But the thing was, Matt, he's back. And I know, Matt, he's going to be a great asset. I think they're talking about possibly this Friday he'll be playing as well. I'm not sure when that's actually going to happen. So look forward to seeing that as well. Let's see. Right.
The more encouraging thing with Shane was that he only walked one in his start. And to me, that points to like, because control's always been one of the issues with him getting the most out of his stuff. So if he's able to control it and not walk anyone, he'll have a lot of success for sure.
That'll be great. Pardon me. But looking at success, it's been interesting because you look over the last month and the Rays lost 4 in a row, Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Then we started seeing some good things happen. We won 2 of 3 with the Cubs. And then when I went to Atlanta, we lost 2 of 3 there. But then we had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 consistent wins with 2 out of 3 with the Twins, 2 out of 3 with Pittsburgh, 2 out of 3 with Seattle, and 2 out of 3 at Kansas City. Then Arlington. Oh, come on, man. I mean, that team, as far as their record to date, wasn't all that fantastic, but they made sure that we didn't win a single one of those 3 games.
Yes.
And
And it's not like the Rays were playing terribly. They just did not show up for the series, which happens.
yeah, and I really wish I always wanted them to do the best, but with Boz there during that series, I really wanted them to come up, stand up. But last night's game being Tuesday and watching the Rays play the Yankees.
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah. The team, America's team. No, that's the Dallas Cowboys. But
Yeah.
oh, we see that team. We see Siri. Excuse me. We see Soto, and we see Judge. Obviously, LeMahieu's back in that roundup. Laboratories, I believe, still with them. Who else? It's in that Ben Rice. Oh my gosh, he was looking fantastic. But
Mhm.
they seem to be having trouble now. I don't know what's going on.
So the thing with the Yankees is that they have a lot of players who they've allocated a lot of funds to, like DJ LeMahieu and Anthony Rizzo and a whole bunch of other guys that and like Gleyber Torres who are underperformers and they have been for a while now, like 2 3 years, and they continue to clog up their roster, to be quite honest, and they should move on from them, but they refuse to. And so what it's doing is it's making their lineup completely lopsided. Anthony Volpe is having what you would call the sophomore slump right now.
Yeah.
Last 30 40 days he's just struggling to get anything consistent going. So they moved him down in the lineup to try to give him some help. But we already knew that Trent Grisham was not going to be helping them offensively. We already knew that Trevino was going to help them offensively very much, maybe once in the blue moon, but consistency is not going to be there. So all that said, it's just not a deep enough roster. And that's what I'm saying online is on X is if I'm Juan Soto and I'm looking at this and I'm a little bit banged up and I see how bad the team is once myself or Aaron Judge aren't really performing, to our insane levels, then I start to get a little bit worried about signing a long-term deal there. Now, having said that, I know they're going to allocate the assets to the team consistently. That's not really a problem. But my thought is you want to be with a smart front office that's not just going to put, names on the board and hope that, someday they might end up having a bit of success. I think if he's offered the same money, elsewhere, he might decide to go to a team that he likes the front office's plan or future better. So I don't know exactly how much he would delve into that or how much Scott Boras would advise him on that. I think Scott Boras is probably more worried about the market in New York and how much he can market them and get money. And that's probably the way he'll spin it. But if Juan Soto wants to win more championships than the one he got in Washington, he might decide to say, okay, well, just as an example, if the Dodgers decide, to give him a deal that matches what the Yankees are doing, would he go to LA? I don't know why he wouldn't. Like they're a better built organization top to bottom than the Yankees are. So I think it starts to ask a lot of questions, basically.
I do not see Juan Soto spending the rest of his career in New York. I could easily see if what you were saying with the Dodgers as a real possibility. That makes sense to me. By the way, I want to correct myself. I was thinking Friday for Shane Baz, but I think they're actually looking at him tomorrow night on Thursday. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah. But my gosh, yeah, Juan Soto. I mean, I got to see him when he's playing with the Nationals, and it was amazing. Now I was up in the nosebleed seats at the National Stadium, but it was still amazing to watch that young man, even from there.
Mm.
I tell you what, this Ben Rice guy, I'm really curious to see how he continues on. I mean, he's looking pretty good here starting out. Let's see. He hit his fifth home run of the year with a 2-run shot in the seventh inning yesterday, and he's had 5 home runs. They've come in his last 5 games. He's just the 6th Yankee in franchise history to hit at least 5 home runs in his first 19 career games. Reading this off the Yankee notes. But wow, he does look like somebody who can shine a little more for the future for them, whether Soto's there or not. And these other guys have got to wake up and be stronger on a regular basis. So I hope that's not the next 2 days here while they're in Tampa. And
you're right. They do have Spencer Jones also coming up, who's, I don't want to say he's a clone of Aaron Judge, but he's a similar stature. He's supposed to be, sliding into the outfield. So if they did decide to move Aaron Judge around in the outfield or to first base, they'd have that option. But it's one of those things too, where injuries can change things in a hurry. So like Aaron Judge hasn't been exactly a picture of health. And Jason Dominguez, who's another one of their top prospects, hasn't been a picture of health either. Neither is Jarrett Cole. There's a lot of questions on that team, but the Rays know all about those injury questions, right?
oh yeah, oh yeah. And anytime anybody complains about injuries, I said just walk away, okay? Rays know nothing about it, right? So just walk away. If you want to tell me about your team and injuries, I'm not interested to hear it whatsoever. So, once we get past these Yankees, man, we still got some running to do here. What, we're going to play Cleveland, and they're coming here. Then we got to go to New York. Then we get, I don't know if I call it a respite, visiting your fair country in Toronto, the Blue Jays. But the series may go see will be the Reds and the Rays. And
really?
yeah, because I want to see Elly De La Cruz.
Yes.
That guy is just amazing to me. And this new guy they got, Hinds. I mean, he was 2 for 3, I think, Monday night, and that included a 421-foot home run.
Yep.
Then last night, he had a double, a triple, and a home run. No single. So I guess he's too good for that. He had a 458-foot home run. So
Mhm.
I want to see Elly De La Cruz. I want to see Rece Hinds. And, I don't want to see him beat us up. But, man, when there's talent out there who perform like that at the bat, I want to see him.
Yeah, Elly De La Cruz is a little bit like Juan Soto in that he looks like a man child out there. He's just having a lot of fun. He's a lot of energy, always amped. Just seems to have a really powerful stance at the plate where like when he hits a ball, there's not much left, in terms of energy you could create that's missing. So, yeah, they're great. Like I don't know much about Rece Hinds to be quite honest. I haven't seen him play much, even in the minors. So, that would be a really good game to see for sure with the Reds. I didn't honestly I hadn't looked far enough because I'm so deep into the draft and to the trades and getting through the All-Star game that I hadn't looked much beyond the All-Star game in terms of the scheduling. I do know July there's a lot of off days, right? For the Rays. So you're talking most players, the ones that aren't in the All-Star game, will get the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th off. And then they get the 29th off as well after that. Like after a good 10-day stretch where they'll be playing. So you're gonna get into August with a really fresh group. And then your first day in August is a day off. And then you have the Astros, then you have another day off. so so that to me is when the Rays are gonna hit the go, right? Is like, okay, you're the 6th of August. From that point onwards, you have 5 days off before the end of the season. So you're basically, you better have your ducks in a row and everything lined up, or else you'll sink or swim, right? So that to me is going to be a lot of fun when we do a show that week. We'll be talking about a lot of trades, a lot of moves, a lot of promotions, the motions, the draft, all those pieces, lined up. And we'll be able to look at the Rays and go, okay, this is where they're headed. This is how they feel about 2024. And this is how they feel about 2025. Because
Mm-hmm.
they'll have set it up in a way that tells us all that information.
Fun times, my friend. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Well, let's take a look. I know one thing you and I were talking about before the show is talking about the future of the Rays. And part of that's about where there will be
Mm-hmm.
in the future.
Yep.
I know you've been following closely, and I somewhat not as much recently, but Colleen Wright from the writer, the journalist from the Tampa Bay Times, she has been posting on and off about everything that's going on with the St. Pete Council and getting things done with the Rays to get a stadium set up over there. There's some back and forth, and then there sounds like there's some extension to when they were actually going to meet and review, and it almost seemed inevitable because I mean, Matt, you and I talked about this before. There's just so much paperwork that had to be looked through, and for anybody to give it any real thought whatsoever, it was going to take a little time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you know what the interesting thing is, Mark? Like we talked about, I think when we were talking with Colleen about how, at the bare minimum, if counselors are going to actually vote for this deal to take place, they need to make it look like they've fought some battles and won some, right? So as minimal as they may seem, it matters. So basically, like the cost overruns being covered by the Rays is a good one. There's a couple of other changes that we noted in that podcast with Colleen, but the most recent ones include a 10,000 square foot fresh food and produce retailer. But the caveat with that is it doesn't have to be built until 2045. Just that's a win, sure, but you're not going to see it for a few decades.
Oh my
Right?
gosh.
And then a 2,500 square foot daycare, childcare, preschool. Now that one I think is more immediate. I don't know if there's an actual date associated with it, and it makes sense, right? Because if you're increasing the number of people in an area. You need to make sure you have some basic services lined up that they can use. So they're kind of the things that we might overlook a lot of times when we're talking about developments and adding people to an area. But that they're the things that the city has to worry about, right? So it makes sense. I just found it interesting that there was nothing to do with the stadium. It has everything to do with what's around the stadium.
Yeah, that's how they worked it too. They came up with two different workshops. One was going to be about the stadium, and the other was going to be about the development around there.
Mhm.
And it seemed like originally, Matt, the way I read it, it was almost like they're trying to make these exclusive of one another, but they're really kind of interdependent to for one to happen the other. I mean, I guess if there was a way to get the development without the race stadium, they would do it. And plus, we'll find out what's going to happen as far as any kind of commitment the Rays had to say, yes, we'll stay there and it'll be in the new stadium for at least 20 years or whatever. But I'm looking forward to finding out what comes from these next meetings. And I do believe it's getting some due diligence. But as you said, they really had to do this, if nothing else, for appearance's sake.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that what they're looking at during the meeting is how they're going to finance things. So they're going to talk about the bonds that they need for the stadium and the bonds that they need for the infrastructure around it and under it. So yeah, it'll be fun. And to me, these things are always kind of interesting to see. You know, all the details that go into a deal that of this magnitude. Which, let's face it, like how many projects take place in the Tampa St. Pete region of this magnitude, right? They don't come around very often, so it's fun to see how they develop, how they end up, deciding what they do. And to be quite honest, a lot of the successes and failures depend on the people that decide to buy in, and that includes entrepreneurs and people moving into the area. They're the ones who give it life, right? So yeah, it'll be interesting.
Well, we will certainly keep our ears to the ground and have Colleen back here if she can be available, and I believe she would from what she said at the last visit. So I'm excited about that too. All righty. One thing I did want to make sure we mentioned was that All-Star game is we've got I think we've got another guy going up there. Braden Coes. You remember his name? Braden Coes?
I do. Yep.
Well, he's the ball guy. He's the one who saves all of the poor souls in the bullpen at Tropicana Field since we
Yep.
don't have a proper bullpen.
He's gonna get a gold glove some year. They have to have a gold glove for those guys. They do great work. Our girls, sometimes they're girls.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you've watched any of the games in the Trop, or you've been there or watched it on TV, you'll see this young man, or like I said, young ladies out there, and they scatter. They have to be able to protect the bullpen, over in that area. And that's one thing, Matt, I can't wait to see change is to get rid of that dangerous area of a bullpen because you see outfielders having to chase down a ball in the foul zone, but they're going to be tripping over a bullpen mound or something along those lines. And I'll be so happy to see that go away because to me it's just been a disaster. I'll make one more real quick comment about that. Had a lady on here recently who's with the USA Women's National Baseball Team, a pitcher by the name of Maggie Meidlinger. And what I love about Maggie is she, in her career beyond baseball, is she's an architect and she works on ball fields. And I asked her, I said, you doing anything about making sure there's a safe place for the pitchers? And she goes, we're making sure we got pitching tunnels set up. I said, okay.
Yeah, that works. That's
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It definitely, I remember back in the old days, it was more common to have, a lot of the stadiums with those. But I definitely liked more the stadiums that had the bullpens in the outfield, and then you had the outfield fans heckling them like crazy and throwing things at them sometimes, which got out of hand, but it made for great video. And then you had the golf carts driving them in sometimes, which was a big controversy. Oh, why are they getting driven in? but then it was also the advertising on those carts, and it was just crazy.
That's the fun of baseball. There's always
Yeah,
something new.
that's right.
So what else is going on, Matt? What have we not talked about?
I think the big elephant in the room when it comes to the Rays is how aggressive they're going to be after their next move. So I think
Mm.
there's a lot of people that are anticipating the Rays being sellers, which I think is what you were alluding to before, where if you start moving Randy Rosarena, Yandy Diaz, those kinds of players, you're kind of signaling that you're no longer comfortable with the direction of the team as it is, and you're looking to change, right? Um, I don't think personally the Rays are either in a financial position that they need to do that, or that they're ready to hand the reins to the next group or core that would have to take over. There's a few pieces like there's Junior Caminero that you could point to who's back in action now and can you can dream on. There's Curtis Mead having some success in AAA, but we saw the defensive issues that he has, where he's going to play. But outside of those two, and maybe you could point to Ronnie Simone, who's not talked about a lot, but his bat is pretty legit. Um, there's just nobody really tearing down the wall. So to me, the Rays have a close knit enough group that they can ride out the season and hope that these guys with Kevin Cash and the staff can work through it to the point of even if they get just the wild card. Anything can happen. We've seen it with the Phillies. We've seen it with anyone else. You get Jeffrey Springs back. Maybe the rotation gets super hot. The pen finally acts the way that they're supposed to, and the Rays go on a run, and then you can end up being anywhere. I think they're more with that, but it's still a question. It's still something that is valid that people are asking. And especially on WDAE, if you listen, you'll have one group that are completely on board with the Rays, playing it out, and you have another one that's, oh no, they're going to sell, they're going to continue, after Darren Civale and Phil Maton and the rest of them, that they'll continue tearing it down. I just, I don't know, maybe my glass is too half full, but I think with as long as Cash, Neander, and Snyder are on board, I don't see them ever being complete sellers. And rightfully so, because they can run a team in the right direction for a long enough period of time to keep them in the game. And they're one game out of 500. They could get back to it today. There's enough fight in the Rays if they end up healthy enough that I know they can go on a run. Every team seems to go on that. The Rays haven't yet. You mentioned that they've been winning a lot more series than they're losing recently. That's a start. But I'm talking about a good 11, 12 game winning streak. Like that
Mhm.
really tends to elevate a team's spirit, right? And I think that's what I think most Rays fans are looking for most of all with the Rays is just to kind of amp things up to the point where they know the Rays are going to score enough run to support the pitching.
I hope that we keep the core that we have for the outfield at there right now. And going back to what you were saying too, as far as Cash and Neander, I think there's not going to be a fire sale. They're going to keep a core. I mean, did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I see that happening. I'm taking a quick glance here while we're talking too at the game tonight here on July 10th. It's the bottom of the fifth, and let's see, Rays are down 2-1. Yankees has swapped out pitcher Marcus Stroman after just 4 innings. Let's see, how did he do?
They loaded the bases and so that they forced their hand. Uh, that points to how the Yankees are feeling right now, right? Anything that jeopardizes a lead, even as small as a 1 run lead, they will act on immediately. And I think they're not very happy with where Marcus Stroman is right now or recently. So the Rays are putting pressure on them, and they're walking, which I love. Like we
Mm-hmm.
saw Paredes got earned the walk, and Brendan Lau had the single before that. They just scored a run earlier in the inning on the force out. But they're getting action, which to me that's what I mean is the Rays are going to put up significant at bats to work pitchers hard. They just haven't always been getting the successful production outside of that. Like sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's becoming more consistent. So that's why I'm saying that I don't see them selling. I just think they're gonna hope that everything starts clicking in the key moments. And Brandon Lau being healthy helps
Oh yeah.
significantly.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was looking at the numbers earlier today as far as number of home runs that the Rays have had. I know he's like, I don't know if he's like number six. He's somewhere in there. He's obviously he's done very, very well with the team, maybe more than that,
Mhm.
but he's just continued let's see, here we go. Most home runs Rays history. Brandon Lau 113. And let's see, just above him is Ben Zobrist with 114 and Upton 118. So but still, that puts him sixth in the. But yeah, Brandon, come on, man, he's amazing. Now, I was wondering, I'm just looking at the game right now on game day, so it's probably about 20 seconds later than reality. What's happening?
They just changed it. They had Tim Hill come in, and he's throwing strikes, trying to get Josh Lowe to ground out. I think he's pitching him low, and they're just looking for a double play or an out. Wait, is there two outs? There's two outs, so he's just looking for the one out, and he got it. So Josh Lowe just struck out. So they made the right move, but now they're good. It's a pen day for them. They have 4 innings to fill with the pen. Generally speaking, the Rays have had success with the. Oh wait,
Josh was the second
that
out.
was the second out. See,
Yep.
I knew they were looking for the double play. See?
You called it, brother. You called it.
Yeah, it's all good. Randy's gonna hopefully punch one out, but no, that would be great. I'd love to see it.
Oh, you and I both.
Yeah, the great thing is like with this Rays Yankees series before the All-Star game is that the Rays get to add punches to the punching bag, right? And everybody loves to beat up on the Yankees when they're having struggles. I see it on Twitter, on X, and I feel for Aaron Boone because you can tell he gets older by the day every time they go through these things, and I don't know. Sometimes there's just no right way to handle things, and everybody will jump on anything you do. Randy ended up lining out, so they're out of the inning. But
Ouch.
yeah, the Yankees have this aura about them that just I think I mentioned this to you before the show where I think the egos end up having them like that Spider-Man thing where they're pointing at each other. They're both Spider-Man, and it's like, no, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. And everybody starts squeezing the bats harder and trying to do too much. And the pressure there is just, I don't think we can even though we talk about it, we know it exists. We can't really quantify it, right? What it actually feels like. But the level of pressure and the level of media scrutiny there is, and the amount of media scrutiny that there is just overwhelming sometimes for them. So I'm not surprised things are happening there on that front. I'm not surprised that they're sliding back from the heights that they were at. Now there's nobody that would tell you that they can't get back to those levels and end up back in the top of the race. But I think the more you look at the health of Juan Soto and what's going on with him, the less like and the pitching, sliding back along with that, it's hard to envision them going on much more of a run. Though I think they're just now more of a wild card team than a division winning team.
Wow. Yeah. Orioles have blown it out. They just continue to grow and grow and grow. So,
Yeah.
well, it's exciting times. Like I said before, man, I'm really looking forward to see how the rest of the series comes out. Let's keep pulling for our Rays, see what happens. And looks like I said, Boz might be on the mound tomorrow night. I'm hoping that we have a win tonight and tomorrow night. Can you imagine it? Love a night. I would love a good sweep of the Yankees at home. That would be. Oh.
Like I said, everybody loves to punch.
Well, let's go, brother. Okay. All right, man. Well, thank you all again for joining us here today on Baseball Biz on Deck. And as always, we'll give you a big raise up. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the week. And hopefully we get to see the Yankees get beat again and again. And if you're going to be at the Trop on Saturday, just remember you'll also get to see Evan Longoria with a ceremonial first pitch. And if you look a little more closely, you'll probably see where he has set aside some time to sign some autographs. So enjoy yourself. So, Matt, thanks again, brother.
Not a problem. Get that memorabilia out for Evan.
Okay, thank you all again once again for joining us here on Baseball Biz on Deck. And just remember, you can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google. Where can you find us on Google? Sure, we're on YouTube for that matter, and of course at baseballbizondeck.com. So thanks again for joining us here, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music rocking forward. Ta-da!